You know, you'd think if you spent most of your career working on Batman properties, you'd know a thing or two about Batman. But Bruce Timm continues to defy common logic. Stick around and we'll talk about it. Hello, I'm Marvin, and I'm the Movie Monster. Bruce Timm is one of the two men who gave us the quintessential Batman series, that being Batman the Animated Series starring the late, great Kevin Conroy. However, following the end of that series, Bruce continued to work on Dark Knight properties without writer Paul Dini, and it became instantly evident to everyone with working eyes and ears that this guy is out of his mind and has no idea what he's doing. Timm's new show, the Caped Crusader, sees identity politics injected into Bruce Wayne's story in a big way. But this isn't a video tearing those choices to shreds. Rather, it's a comment Timm made in defense of one of those decisions. Apparently, the female penguin was created because Batman doesn't have many good villains. That's a real thing that was said, and we're going to explore that today on Tooneytown TV. Folks, you know, there are some partnerships that really, the two halves enrich one another to make a spectacular whole. You've got teams like Abbott and Costello, Penn and Teller, all right, Marvin the Movie Monster, and Kevin Apollo. The teams that just feed off of each other. The Rock and Roll Express, okay? But then you've got teams where maybe one person is a little bit more involved than the other. Maybe one person is a little more competent than the other. Maybe a team like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, or in this case, Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, because clearly we've learned where all the talent lied, and we learned that a long time ago. Paul Dini is the most prolific Batman storyteller of all time. Together, Paul Dini and Bruce Timm brought Batman the Animated Series to life. But everything that Bruce Timm does without Paul Dini is a massive insult to Batman that shows a complete fundamental misunderstanding of the character. We saw the Killing Joke when Bruce was shacking up with Barbara, who is supposed to be like basically like his foster daughter in a lot of ways. It's absolutely insane. Kevin Apollo, what are your thoughts on Bruce Timm before we get into the meat of our story?
F Bruce Timm. I've been saying it for years. The Batman Harley Quinn movie was not awful, but it certainly wasn't great. It was clearly him playing out some weird little creepy fantasy. Then we get the Killing Joke, and then we saw where that went. Anything that he's put on paper for DC Comics has been an effing disaster. He is Paul Dini. He is not.
No, and here's the thing. He's an artist, and artists are not always storytellers. Like, storytelling and writing and art are two very different things. I can write a story. I can't even draw a stick figure. So, it goes in both directions there. We've seen things when artists try to become like storytellers or creative heads of studios. We saw Quesada drive Marvel into the ground like a railroad spike for years. I mean, Joe Quesada, brilliant artist, but horrible storyteller.
We can publicly admit that now.
Yeah, no, we're allowed to admit that, at least on this channel. But Bruce Timm, another one of these guys who, you know what, you're a good artist, or you've got a very distinct style that people seem to like. However, you don't know anything about Batman stories, because this Batman Caped Crusader show on Amazon Prime, the show that Max, of all things, passed on and gave it over to Amazon, Bruce Timm, one of the things that he did was create a female penguin. Now, we've talked about this a bit on Tooney Talk TV. Oswalda Cobblepot, the laziest name ever conceived for a gender-swapped character. Oswalda is not a middle name. You just took Oswald Cobblepot and you added an A at the end of his first name. But anyway, Bruce Timm has explained why he gender-swapped the penguin in Batman Caped Crusader. Quote, "There's a lack of good villains." And this was written on That Park Place by editor-in-chief John F. Trent, a good friend of this channel. And there you see Batman facing up against Oswalda Cobblepot, voiced by Minnie Driver, which, by the way, Minnie Driver's voice coming out of that brute of a woman is a little weird.
Yeah, it was a little off-putting.
Yeah.
I feel bad because her performance is awesome. Minnie Driver can pretty much.
She's a great actress. I really like her a lot. I liked her in Tarzan. I like her in everything that she does, pretty much.
I love her.
I just don't like that this character exists.
But this is stupid.
Yeah.
Batman has a litany of female villains.
Right.
Listen,
Hold on.
two.
Let's get to that. I want to get
Yeah,
into the meat of this story
yeah.
first. So, in an
Uh,
interview with the Emmys, Tim and executive producer James Tucker were asked by Christine Champagne, "I literally clapped when I saw the Penguin was a woman and heard Minnie Driver doing her voice. It was an unexpected and wonderful surprise." This is the shill media at work, folks. This is how they sound. "Why did you make that choice?" So Tim answered, "James and I were talking about the overview of the show, and we said one of the problems with Batman, as he is a lack of good villains." What? Look, you and I have said it for years. The only hero whose rogues gallery comes even close to matching the how iconic Batman's rogues gallery is Spider-Man, and I don't even think he hits it. Batman has the greatest villains to ever exist.
That's it. Well, I say it all the time. It comes down to Batman, comes down to Spider-Man. That's why the two of them are constantly volleying back and forth for who the number one superhero on the planet is.
Right.
But Spider-Man's villains don't come close to it. And
Right.
at the end of the day, Batman's female villains are so iconic. They're pretty much American iconography at this point. Catwoman and Harley. They're the two biggest sellers.
Poison Ivy. So that's what Tim says. You got Catwoman, you got Poison Ivy, you got Harley Quinn, but it'd be really good to have more female villains, which is a ridiculous statement.
I was gonna say Ivy is one good movie away from joining the Catwoman Harley Quinn tier. The even Talia.
They're all about Ivy right now because of Ivy and Harley and the fact that they've like made them a lesbian couple and things.
Yeah, I know. So, you're not. People aren't allowed to have meaningful, friendly relationships.
Right. They were BFFs since that Harley and Ivy episode of Batman the Animated Series, which is one of my favorite episodes of all time. But yeah, no one's allowed to have platonic friendships with anyone anymore. Without people being like they should bang. But anyway, female villains, Kevin Apollo, female villains of Batman. Now, is it more than just Catwoman, Poison Ivy, and Harley Quinn? Because I feel like it's probably more.
No, Batman has an astonishing amount of female villains, and I'll just Catwoman, Ivy, Talia, Harley, Lady Shiva, one of my favorites, by the way, a character who Batman cannot beat in a fight very often.
Very true.
Dula Dent, Lynx, White Rabbit, Sophia Falcone, who should be the character that Oswalda is playing. You could have had her become Hangman. They could have very slowly worked their way into Long Halloween. But I digress. Magpie, Roxy Rocket, Cheshire, even though Cheshire's more of a Titans problem. Killer Frost, Anissa Al Ghul, Phantasma, or Phantasm, Nocturna, the Vampire, Jezebel Jet, Lady Clay, Lady Spellbinder. We got Punchline. I'm not really too crazy about Punchline, but Lady Arkham, female Copperhead.
That's what I said. Cottonmouth. I was thinking Kill Bill.
Copperhead. That was it. And there's a lot more. There's a lot more that we can't even get to, like a Thanatos, Jane Doe, Nora Fields. Here we go, Madame Zodiac. The Mime. I always forget about the Mime. Orca, Pix. We got. I said Spellbinder. I said Lady Falcone. Whip, Silken Spider. Oh, Whisper. Dragonfly.
Yeah, as you can hear, guys, there's a lot of them. You didn't have to take the Penguin and make him a woman because listen, Kevin Apollo could continue going on. There's so many. And a lot of these, if some of you guys are like, oh, well, these are like D-list villains. Well, you know what? So was Mr. Freeze at one point. Mr. Freeze was a gag villain from the Batman 66 show, and Bruce Timm was part of the creative team that turned him into an iconic villain by doing Batman the Animated Series. So I don't want to hear it.
Dude, he could have even put Red Claw in this spot, which was a character they created together. And listen, the Batman D-list villain thing, you got to remember when Batman first started and the period of time that we're in, right? Because when they started doing the show, we were promised a like first 5 months of year one Batman. So it was supposed to be mobster heavy, and the villains were going to be very few and far between. So you can reconcile the use of the C-listers and D-listers of as Batman is beating up the mobsters, the threat level hasn't adjusted to his presence yet. So
Right. The
to
escalation
me,
hasn't
like,
happened yet.
yeah, so I'm like, to me, like, really, like, this show should have been mobsters, the Red Hood gang, Rupert
Right.
Thorne, obviously Catwoman, and probably one of the Al Ghul daughters just floating around, seeing what's going on.
Right. Well, and
Instead, we got what
you
we
could
got.
also do something like Deathstroke if like the mob hires Deathstroke to kill Batman. Or you
Yes,
could
yes,
do
yes.
something like, Black Mask can rise up out of the mob. And
Mhm.
and you can do one of the greatest Batman stories ever told, Arkham Origins, where it's one night to kill the Bat, where all of the assassins are going after him. It's maddening. Now,
Mhm.
you and I know this readily just from being fans. Could you imagine, like, you're a guy, Bruce Timm, whose claim to fame is Batman? How do you sit there with a straight face when you brought the most iconic Joker that's ever existed to life and say there's a lack of good villains? Now, even if we want to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he meant female villains, we have just
Mhm.
proven that there is no lack of female villains in Batman's rogues gallery. This is ridiculous.
I didn't even get down half this list that I found, and
Exactly.
once I stopped pulling them from memory. But listen, also too, the Joker was a D-list villain. The Joker was a D-lister. The Joker didn't find his claim to fame until Cesar Romero, and then
Right.
at that point, because he was a murder clown, he wasn't even allowed to be used in the books. So
Right.
the there's just it's nonsense. Listen, he had his own agenda. It's all about the message, and he decided to cram it into the Batman mythos, and he changed who he thought he could get away with without making too many people upset. 'Cause at the end of the day, Harley is fat and Asian because if you complain about it, you're a bigot. The
Mhm.
Gordons are black because if you complained about it, you're a bigot.
Yep.
They even fatten up Renee Montoya and she's a beat cop.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like
they made Renee Montoya the whole show is just like a bunch of lesbians sitting around drinking
it's
coffee with occasional appearances
yeah,
by Batman. It's not
yeah,
good.
fat lesbians drinking coffee, waiting for the sun to go down. The
Right. Right.
and it's like and listen, this is a problem that exists in modern comics. You see it all. We've turned when you open up the majority of these books, they're all sitting around coffee shops, complaining about life, and it's just
Bec-
not a thing.
well,
Um,
because modern writers can only write themselves. They
that's it.
cannot conceive of anything that exists beyond their worldview. And that there's a death of creativity and imagination out there. Paul Dini knows nothing of what it's like to be a billionaire playboy or swing around on rooftops, like the Batman, but he still crafted the best Batman stories we've ever seen.
Yep.
Uh, it's they cannot write anything but their own horrific, sad, sorry, pathetic lives.
Yep, that's it. You're trapped in a myopic worldview, trapped inside of a bubble of a bunch of people sniffing their own farts. They have no world experience, no life
Yep.
experience. The only thing they got is what they probably see on TV, and which is why we're trapped in a world of endless reboots and remakes. And frankly, if you're going to remake a movie, you should only remake bad movies.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, folks, what do you think? What villain would you have put in there in place of Oswalda Cobblepot, the Lady Penguin? We want to hear, so sound off in the comments section below and let us know. No good villains? Seriously? The most iconic rogues gallery in the history of comics, Bruce, and you can sit there and say with a straight face that there are no good villains in Batman? Even if he meant no good female villains, that's still an outright lie, as Kevin Apollo explained in this video. Bruce Timm is a cultural vandal, and we can all just hope that this is the last Batman property he ever gets his hands on. Thanks for joining us today. Please join us Thursday nights at 8 p.m. EST for Tooney Talk TV, our live stream pop culture podcast. And while you're at it, please subscribe to Tooneytown Wrestling, our pro wrestling channel, and That Game Place, the That Poc Plays video game channel where I'm a regular host. If you liked what you saw here today, please like, share, and subscribe. Click the bell icon to get notified of new videos as they drop. From all of us here at the Tooneytown Networks, I'm Marvin the Movie Monster. Now get out of here!